Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. It's really exciting to have you guys here and exciting to see all the passion that you put in all the work that you guys do. You are the real heroes. So now it's time for a very interesting conversation, a very interesting discussion about putting communities at the center of conservation, where we have four great speakers. So let me introduce one by one. So please welcome Bern Kiptoo from Big Life Foundation. Samuel Lekimaroro from NRT. Jackson Mbeke from Grace Gorillas. Wilson Sairowua from Mata Elephant Project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The panel before you is we are told we are looking forward to an interesting conversation about the communities, and I know everyone here as communities as their stakeholders, if not the stakeholders themselves. So all the organizations that are seated before here work directly with the communities. We are going to state where, take 2 minutes, say where we work and what kind of work we do with the communities, and then we will dive into the items of discussion for today. So I'll start. I work with Big Life Foundation. Big Life Foundation is a non-governmental organization in Amboseli ecosystem. Amboseli is the south. It's in the south of southern part of Kenya, and we also work in west part of Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Big Life works within an area of 1.5 acres, 1.5 million acres of land, and we have various projects as far as communities are concerned, as we will talk about them as the conversation goes on. So I'm going to expect real life experiences from the panelists here, what they are doing daily and what works for them, and what may not have worked. And I'm also sure that we will also pick some ideas and information on your experiences as well as the audience. So thank you and welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Samuel Lekimaroro, as you have heard. I work with an organization called Rangelands Trust in Northern Kenya. Rangelands Trust is a non-governmental organization working with 43 community conservancies in 10 counties of this republic. So the organization started way back in 2004, and I'm proud to say we are the first pioneers to use EarthRanger in our operations. So thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jackson Mbeke. I come from DRC, and I work for Gorilla Rehabilitation and Education Conservation Center. It's just briefly an orphanage for baby gorillas, and with the ultimate purpose to reintroduce them in the nature, their natural habitat. So I'm sorry, sometimes I'm I coming from a country which is a French speaker, so sometimes I will just manage with the small English I know. So I'm the director of the project in the country. I'm oversee all these sanctuary operations and the education outreach, and then community engagement. And apart from that, I oversee again the conservation. I mean, the center is located near a reserve, a natural reserve, which is called Taina Nature Reserve, which is a community-led project. So even right now, we have our teams in the field doing monitoring, and yeah, that's what I say now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wilson Sairowua, and I work for Mara Elephant Project. So Mara Elephant Project is an organization working in the greater Mara ecosystem that actually include the Masai Mara and Loita and the Mau Forest. So the Mara is actually divided into three. For instance, we have the Masai Mara Game Reserve. We have the Mara Conservancies, which are 16 in numbers. Those are well-established conservancies. And then we have the settlement area, which covers 10,000 kilometers square. So that is where Mara elephants work. And our work is mostly doing anti-poaching work, responding to human-elephant conflicts, and also research, collaring of elephants for security and human-elephant conflict purpose.
Okay. Great. So as we start the role of communities in conservation, we first of all have to recognize that different countries have different frameworks in terms of the legal, cultural values. And so what may work for us in Kenya could be different in DRC or other countries. So when the three of us are speaking on from Kenyan perspective, and we would also like to hear from DRC as well as other countries from the audience. So to start us off is I'm going to ask Samuel to speak about the role of communities in wildlife security. These are the people who bear the brunt of living with the wildlife. So we will hear from him, just speak about that, and then we will come to Wilson to speak about the role of the community in mitigating human-wildlife conflict, and Jackson here will talk about the role the community will plays in a success of our project. So you're welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Bernard. Let me start by explaining what community conservancy and the movement in northern Kenya is all about. So, as I said, NRT is an umbrella organization. We work with communities for 3 community conservancies, which are autonomous institutions, governed and driven by the local people. In Kenya, in the Kenyan context, we have, we say about 60% of wildlife lives within community land. So these communities have come together, collaborating with government to try and manage wildlife in their own land, and thereby accruing some benefit out of it, because the conservation value for them is what do they gain by hosting this wildlife in their communities. So we have invested so much as NRT to strengthen the governance of this community conservancy so that they can drive the agenda by themselves. Some of the success stories in northern Kenya, we have a conservancy called Sarah, which is hosting black rhino population that were decimated in that landscape. We put in 10 rhinos in 2015, May, and in a period of 7 years, that population has grown steadily up to about 21 rhinos this year. And the entire conservancy is run and managed by the communities themselves, employing their own staff, with some support from the government as well. So those are some of the success stories we can say the communities are playing in recovery of populations. Same applies to a conservancy that is within the umbrella called Ishakbin Community Conservancy in eastern Kenya, Garissa in particular. We established a small sanctuary to try and recover the population of Hirola. We put in 48 animals around in 2012, and that population has steadily grown up to about 180, but then drought came and the numbers dropped a little bit. So these institutions are done and run by the communities themselves. They are the first line of protection, defending against the threats of poaching. I'm proud to say SERA, which is locally run by the local people, has never registered any poaching cases because the communities have embraced and owned the project. So those are some of the stories that I can say the communities are playing in supporting recovery of population and also in wildlife security. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. And just to add to what you talked about, the community being the first line of defense, in our case in Amboseli, and like I said, we will be giving you real life experiences, what we have experienced ourselves. So when he says that the community is the first line of defense, no amount of resources or weapons that you can take to the community and coerce them to cooperate with you. If they don't want to cooperate with you, that will be the end of your project or your program. So next I'm going to ask Wilson to talk about the role the community is playing in mitigating human-wildlife conflict. We heard in the morning from Dr. Omondi that the Kenyan protected areas are open systems, so all the problematic animals meet with the communities, and the results most of the time are negative, which results in human-wildlife conflict. So I will ask Wilson to briefly talk about his experience from Mara.
Thank you, Ben. So let me just start by briefly explain about the conflict in the Mara. So as I said earlier, the Mara is divided into three, whereby there is a game reserve, the Mara Conservancies, and also the settlement area. So all this land is open for the animal movement, with an exception of where the land is settled, and everyone has actually fenced the land. So the land is divided into individual ownership. So in this case, it has actually been difficult for these elephants or any other animals to move from one area to another. So in this case, the community are coming together, opening up corridors for these animals, using the tracking data that is actually from the EarthRanger, that we can tell that this area is actually an elephant or other animal corridor. So in that case, we're bringing the community together and opening up those corridors. And then also we are actually coming up with ideas of mitigating human-elephant conflicts. So instead, the community used to, like when the elephants go to the farms, they will start shooting them with arrows and spears. In that case, this is dangerous to those animals. So we are actually coming up together with the community on the best ways of mitigating these conflicts. One example is coming up with the chili balls idea, whereby it's a mix of chili and the balls. So instead of shooting an elephant with an arrow, you just shoot that elephant with a chili ball, and then when it breaks, it is sprayed to the oil, to the elephants. You all know that elephants don't like the chili. So in that case, that is actually coming up together with the community. And then also we have also set up geofences together with the community in order to understand those areas that elephants are not allowed to. So in its case that elephant cross that geofence, we send the rangers and be able to move that elephant back into a safe area. And then also we have the rangers from the local communities. So the communication from the community to the rangers is actually straight away, because it is a family member calling his brother or a sister who is actually a ranger to come and respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilson. And as everyone else, we will take questions after our discussion here. So I'm going to invite Jack from DRC to hear about how the community, the role of community in success of a project. In Amboseli, a few years ago, we realized that the land was getting degraded, and we thought of coming up with a grazing management plan. So we engaged the elders, and they okayed they gave us the green light to go ahead and set it up. And we forgot to, or rather, out of our ignorance, we left out women and the youth. And just when we were about to launch the program, they demonstrated and said they were not part of it, and they don't want to hear anything about it. So the whole thing collapsed with all them the millions we had invested in consultancy and engagement with the stakeholders. So it's important that you also get a community support before you do anything, particularly in conservation. So let's hear from Jack, the experience with the Grace project. Welcome, Jack.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, what I have about that support from the community is that the Grace is really a project which have been initiated by the local community itself. I mean, the community first gave the land on which we built all these facilities for the sanctuary. So it's really a based community initiative where we put that community in the middle, even in our all operations. So before we have any project, we always work first with the community. We include their decisions. We do like we use their wiseness, but all will happen. So we listen to them, and then they come back with really very good support. So what I mean is that when they give the land, really they are part of the project. So then, myself here, like Jackson, I came from the same community. My family gave the land, and then, thank you. Yeah, so my family gave the land, and then we got the scholarship to study. And then after finishing our studies, we came back in our community managing our land. So it's a very big collaboration between the project and the community. And then now we are really very connected as well ourselves, who are sensitizing our parents, our relatives about the project. So apart from that, we use many members of the community. So the community is supporting the project by their work, by their expertise, by their force. They come even voluntarily working in like the gorilla farm, where we grow like veggies for supplementing this gorillas diet. So it's really incredible thing we have reached so far about this relation, which is really a strong marriage between the local community and our project. And now we have then some projects about tree planting, which the community does itself. And they have some practice like using fuel efficient stove, which is contributing to reducing the use of the wood, and really they are really very good practice they use. So they practice many things which are related to support the conservation itself in general, and particularly the Grace itself. Yeah, so that's something I can tell about. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. We are going to move fast. When we were told that we are going to present this session in 45 minutes, we thought it was a short time, as we know. Talking about communities will require the whole day, if not the whole week. So we're going to move fast to secondly to the next item, which is the best practices and the important lessons we've learned as working with communities. And like I indicated about the grazing management plan we attempted a few years ago, we forgot to include women and the youth. And so when the project was about to start, they said, you know, our fathers may have okayed. That's now from the youth. They said our fathers, this was like 20-30 year plan of grazing management. So they say you're negotiating with people who will not be here in those 30 years. And we are the ones who will be implementing what you're talking about. So if it doesn't, if it may work for them, but if it doesn't work for us, we really don't care about it. Another thing that we also experienced was we've learned actually in Amboseli is about understanding you define your community and you understand the role of each of them. There was a time when we could negotiate with the youth and the men. Those are the ones who will always retaliate when an animal destroys or injures somebody or destroys their property, or sometimes even killing them. So as conservationists, we would engage the men and the Morans so that they don't go into the bushes to kill the animals. And then all of a sudden their mothers come and they say, so we no longer have men in this community that can defend us. And you know, there's no provocation of any kind, like a mother crying and telling their sons, you know, you better give us those straws as we go and defend the community. And then all of a sudden, everyone goes to the bushes and sparing and killing of wildlife happens. So it's also important you don't just look at one side of the coin. You need to look at you need to define your whole community and understand the role and the influence of each of them. So I'm going to ask Wilson to tell us the best practices and the lessons learned, and I'll come back to Sam and then to Jack.
So thank you, Ben. So the community actually comes first in terms of conservation. First of all, you need to understand the community you're working on. So in our case, in the Mara, we have a bigger challenge of fences and also farming, whereby we have a lot of crop raiding going on. And to solve that, we have actually come up with what we call the experimental farm. So this is a farm whereby we have leased 5 acres land and planted different types of crops, 28 types of crops. And the farm is open for the elephants to feed on any crops that they want. So in that case, we are actually trying to understand the elephant selection to crops. So in that, we are bringing the community to understand that instead of growing one certain crops, which is most raided by the elephants, like the maize, so you can actually go to another alternative. In that case, we are also trying to understand also maybe we grow these crops into level. So the first level, if we understand that elephants don't feed on chili, sunflower, or lavender, those crops can come first from where the elephants pass through. So in that case, so the last option will be maize and other crops which are actually raided by the elephants. So that is one solution that we have come up. We have also been doing like short terms responding to conflicts, like the use of drones to chase elephants out of farming, and also by use of firecrackers, which elephants. I'm actually talking more of elephants because I work for Mara Elephant Project, which is actually dealing more of elephants. So yeah, so.
Thank you, Wilson. I'll hand over to Sam.
Thank you, Bernard. You've asked about best practice, and what we see working in northern Kenya is that the communities themselves have owned the project, and they have invested so much on good governance and the democracies and driving, carrying everybody along. So in terms of good governance, there is an elected board. They're properly trained, and they have a fixed term limit to run and manage the conservancy. On the expiry of the 3 years, they can be re-elected, but then, the communities you work with, somebody wants to stay and stay and stay because there's so much benefit in being in the board, for example. So there is a constitution that guides how many terms somebody, or the elective process that somebody must undergo, and we train the board. That is what I can say is a best practice in managing of these conservancies. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, with the GRACE project is really that inclusive method, that participatory approach we are doing there. Considering first the community ahead of any project we can run. So, like, I can give an example for like the biomonitoring, which is going on in Taina Nature Reserve, which is led by GRACE. All these members are hired from the local community, and they are sent it by stakeholders, and then we consider them. So they are really good practice we do, and they feel that they are really considered. Apart from that, we have our education team, which is going out with the radio programs, trying to teach all this program about GRACE, all this very good practice about conservation, and all that is really well welcome in really the community. So we have more practice, like I've said some while ago, about this tree planting and living stock, everything. So we do some really very good project, very good practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson and Sam. So as you will notice that what we are speaking about here is about the people. And if someone talked about CSR in the morning, and it could be optional to some of you, if not all of you, but for us, CSR is compulsory for us. So if the community don't feel like they are benefiting from what we are doing, they can really bring down what we've built for years. So we can speak about all the things that we do for the community here until the cows come from grazing. And the time again, we are told we have under 10 minutes. So I'm going to look at the last, second last item of our discussion today, which is the effects of pandemics like Ebola, COVID-19, the drought that is ravaging most parts of Kenya now, and how we are what we are doing to also make sure that the community, which are our major stakeholders, also get cushioned. So in Amboseli, which if any one of you has read about the report that was mentioned in the morning by Dr. Omondi, was hit by this drought, and as there's a popular saying that goes that a hungry man is an hungry man. So if the community is starving or is unhealthy, they won't care to listen when you tell them about conservation or anything related to conservation. So when pandemics like COVID-19 or the drought, Ebola for DRC happen, there should be something that we should do also as partners in conservation to ensure that the livelihoods of the community is taken care of. So I'm not going to ask in any particular order if there's any response mechanism that any of the panelists here employed during these when those epidemics broke out. They can talk about them. So
drought is one major thing that has hit the country. I think this is, they say, is the worst in 40 years in Kenya now. what are we doing as conservationists and partners to support our communities? One is that we, as NRT, there are two things that we are doing both to communities and wildlife. One is that community conservancies themselves are trying to support feeding programs in the schools, because these are pastoralist communities. So we have seen Kalama Conservancy, Westgate Community Conservancy supporting both in school feeding programs and also in supplementing feeding for the wildlife, because the center of the agenda here is wildlife. So if they lose out on all the wildlife, and that's where most of the livelihoods is earned in what they're doing, then decimated wildlife means there is no conservation there. So Sarah is also feeding on the wildlife. During the COVID time, the country was locked down, but the rangers are still out there in the field, and the resources are really little. What we did is that through government efforts, the government of Kenya supplemented in paying salaries for an entire 1 year, costing about 1 billion Kenya shillings to our conservancy rangers, because they recognize the role that these people are playing in complementing the efforts to conserve wildlife in the country. Thank you.
Okay. As far as Grace is concerned, what we did during, we started with Ebola, and then it came the COVID after, and many challenges. But with Ebola, what we did is we're trying to develop some protocols to protect first the site. And apart from these protocols, I mean these hygienic protocols where we had to wash hands on a schedule, if I can say so. Actually, the morning we whistle, we have to wash. Noonish, we have to wash. And then after work, we have to wash our hands. So it was really a hard time. And after that, we did like we get all the food for our gorillas from our only farm. We couldn't get the food from the market anymore. And then we did like vaccines for all staff. Yeah, so they are really kind of things we did. And actually, we went through, now we are free of Ebola and even COVID. So yeah, that's what we did. Thank you.
So talking of the effect of COVID, because in the Mara we haven't had that prolonged drought like in Amboseli and the north. But actually, the Mara actually people depends on the tourism. So as the country was under the lockdown, so there were no tourists coming to the Mara, and all the conservancies depend on the lease or the money from the tourist partners. So in that case, all that stopped. So we had to raise more funds to support the conservancies and also to feed other families in the Mara. And then also through the government, who actually had the community scouts who actually provided more effort to the rangers in the field. And also we saw there was an increase of bush meat during the COVID pandemic. That is actually due to people being at home without no food, so they had to go to look for other alternative. And in that case, actually, we also increased the number of rangers around the forest, that is the Mao and the Loita, to protect the animals in the forest.
Okay, thank you. I'm told we have under 10 minutes, but as you know, we were chosen as community representatives here, or the people who work with communities more, and we have some strategy on how to engage them. So we can decide to speak to the last minute here, so that you don't ask us questions. So unless you raise up your hand, we can employ that tactic on you, and you will not have a chance to ask us a question. So the last item that I'm going to ask the panelists to talk about is the challenges of working with the communities. It's never an easy affair to work with people who can manipulate even what they may have accepted to do. So, and of course, one of the greatest strength that the community can employ when they want to challenge us is the politics. There's a lot of community politics, not just in the conservation, but generally politics about everything. So if you don't involve this person, they will go and join and gang up with the other guy. If you work well with the governor or with the member of parliament, the other side would go to the senator, the other guy will come with their team, and they will be push and pull. The other challenge about in Amposeli is the high rate of land subdivision and conversion, and you cannot tell anyone what to do with their land. So if you don't engage them from the stage at which they are subdividing, and you try to come and convince them later on to set aside their land for conservation, it may be too late, or it may not even work at all. And the other thing that we also experience as a great challenge in Amposeli is the getting revenue that is outweighs other forms of land use, like agriculture from tourism, so or other conservation efforts. So if you ask a community member to set aside their 60-acre piece of land, the first thing they would ask you is how much am I going to make out of just leasing my land for conservation? So it's a challenge to us to be able to satisfy them in order not to convert the land to other users that may not be compatible with conservation. I'm going to hand over to the panelists, and I'll start again with Wilson as I come this side to talk briefly about the challenges they experience working with community, and then we will open a Q&A session.
So thank you, Ben. So what you just talk is just the same with us, because we are all working with the same community. That is the Maasai, in Samburu, not in Amboseli and the Mara. These are just the same people. The issue of politics, as you have spoken here, is just the same. But actually, another bigger challenge is compensation, whereby it is actually, there's a delay on compensating on any loss to the community. So that is actually becoming a very bigger challenge. And then also you find that another challenge is letting this community to understand that they own these animals. Like many people understand that the KWS or the Mara Elephant Project or other organization own these animals, not actually the community. So just because of time.
Thank you, Wilson. And Sam and Jackson, I don't know whether you've experienced this, but you start a project, the community is open to it, they welcome you, but midway or just when you're thinking you are rolling with it, they switch sides and say we didn't remember saying yes to that. We have a crop protection fence in our area of operation, where we've constructed 100 kilometers of electric fence. And when we were establishing it, we engaged the community. We told them about the need to fence off the farmlands, and they said they will support the running costs as long as we get the seed fund to build the fence. Immediately the fence was completed, they said, go talk to KWS. This was your fence. We don't remember saying we will contribute such a thing. And we were thrown to square one of now maintaining the fence ourselves as well. So I don't know whether Jack and Sam have experienced such an incident before, but that's just one incident of community agreeing to what you do, and then they change their minds.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I don't have many challenges, but still we have some. So what I've discovered with our project is that the challenge we have is expectations. You know, people always want more. You can come with this, but they will need more. So it's really a very tricky thing. Like we are having like population increasing, everything. So you can promise this. Like now, I came there having in nearest village. We never worked there, but we came up with a project of 1,000 trees to plant. But then we are facing a demand of 7,000, 700,000, something like that. So it goes up and up, while we came with just 1 out of 7, then they ask more. So it's a kind of expectation. And then the communication, you know, when we can tell the community and you don't realize what you promised, then you will I always see that you can get in trouble. So we try to keep a permanent dialogue, as we have even dialogue committee in the community, so that it can constitute a bridge between managers and the community. So these expectations and the misunderstanding, sometimes it can create really challenges in the community. Thank you.
I have nothing to add on, because the same challenges you have is what we have, but additionally, one of the biggest is misconceptions on land. In northern Kenya, most of the land is owned by the community in form of group ranches. So there's so much politics, you know, not everybody embraces what we do. So for those who don't, then they start off politics of saying our land is being taken by conservation organizations, which is not true. So that's another challenge that sometimes we face in northern Kenya.
Great. So it's Q&A, and it doesn't have to be questions. It could also be comments on your experience from your sides.
Thanks very much to all 4 of you. I think your insights are very valuable, and we need to learn a lot from what you said. I just wanted to find out if you've, the same way that there's been a lot of discussion about data flows and checking what data we need inside the protected area, have you used EarthRanger, or have you done an analysis to see what data the communities want collected outside of the protected area? Anyone, or maybe somebody in the room?
In Northern Rangelands Trust, yes, the center of focus is our communities, and we have employed over 1,000 rangers across the 43 conservancies. So all the data that we get from the field comes from these communities. And how we use that data in terms of EarthRanger, we use it in planning of patrols, we use it in coordination of inter-conservancies operations. We have also used it on building peace between our communities. And so we have studied over time trends, and we can be able to make informed decisions out of the EarthRanger data that we use. Thank you.
Yeah, for my case, we just used the EarthRanger a while ago, but I can anticipate that this will be very useful. Up to now, we don't have data, but whenever we'll start visualizing these data, community seeing them, I can anticipate that really that will be very important, because you can take a very good action of something you know better. And I know with that EarthRanger system, the community will understand everything they are dealing with, and they will take very good action.
And for our case, we've been using EarthRanger for 3 years now. But that doesn't mean we've not been collecting data with other methods. We collect various types of data, and some of which we use to create feedback reports to the community. For instance, the wildlife encounters by our rangers in the field. So we will create maps telling them where there is high presence of predators in this season, so they need to avoid taking their livestock to this side where there is where there will be likelihood of encountering lions and other predators. We also share with them the the presence of elephant families with small babies, so that they don't go and harass them, and there will be conflict. So we share feedback, and also the fence that I was talking about was informed by data. We had data going back to 2010 of crop raids and property damage, and when we sat down with the community and showed them what it looks like, we agreed to set up the the fence line to separate the conservancies and the community land.
So I think the question is answered by the other panelists, but just to add that we have also been doing the same. It's like around 4 years now, and the rangers have been recording all the incidents in the community area. But actually, I think with the new EarthRanger mobile, that will actually make easier. Even using the community can fill that form by themselves.
Thank you very much. Congratulations you guys for working with the communities. We in the private sector view you as our key partners in conservation of wildlife. My concern is what do you think about sustainability of the community projects or community conservancies beyond, for example, in Mara we hear, or in Amboseli you are talking about dependence on tourism. Some of the calamities are stopping this or kind of wrecking that dependence. Are you thinking about something else to augment tourism as a main source to sustain community conservancies? Are you thinking about issues like long-term carbon assessment or something like that, so that we're going to be talking about long-term sustainability? Yeah. Number two, how do you think about settling issues of negative politics that sometimes affect conservancies? Thank you.
In particular, I don't have a direct answer to any of your questions, but we were also challenged recently when we are implementing a USAID project that is looking at enhancing biodiversity conservation, and we were asked by the donors. One of the items that we were going to do was look at tourism as an avenue for revenue for the community, but. So they told us when COVID hit all over the world, tourism came to an halt, and you're still thinking about tourism. So I can't say there's any one single solution, but the only thing that I can say, if we can think about things that will make sure that the community benefit to the last person, if there will be something like that.
Thank you, Dominic, for your question. Yes, long-term sustainability. So, what the communities are doing is providing space for management of wildlife. Parks are never enough to host this wildlife. In northern Kenya alone, we have about 7,800 elephants as per the census that was done 3 years ago. So the role they are playing is the role of government. So one of the things, other than depending on donor money to do what they are doing, is the government support. Like, for example, when COVID came, the minister allowed about 5,000 rangers to be paid because they are conserving Kenyan heritage. The other thing is the carbon project, which is really supporting our conservancies. We got about, in last year, actually this year, about 500 million Kenya shillings for conservancies, 14 conservancies in the north. That money has really come in handy to support them. Some counties have also embraced the conservancy model, and they have anchored it in their law. Samburu County is a case study where they are putting in about 120 million to support community conservancies every year. And we can see that maybe other counties following in that route. So long-term sustainability of the project is not really donor money, but it's about other avenues to support them. On your second question, I really don't have an answer to that.
So thank you, everyone. I told you this session was going to be short, but we are out of time.